Thank you, and welcome to all of here with us in the San Ramon Valley Radio Broadcast Studio, and especially to all of you out there on the other side of the radio dial. This week, the Theatre of Open Hearts brings you A Christmas Carol. So sit back, stay tuned in, and hear this heart-changing tale written by Charles Dickens.
Marley was dead to begin with. There's no doubt whatsoever about that. The register of his burial was signed by the clergyman, the clerk, the undertaker, and the chief mourner. Scrooge signed it. Marley was as dead as a doornail. Scrooge knew he was dead? Of course he did. Scrooge and he had been partners for so many years. Scrooge was his sole executor, his sole administrator, his sole friend, and the only man who mourned him, if Scrooge had mourned at all. Again, there's no doubt that Marley was dead, though Scrooge never painted out old Marley's name. There it stood, years afterward, above the warehouse door, Scrooge and Marley. Scrooge answered to both names. It was all the same to him. It was bitterly cold, and the fog was thick as pea soup on that Christmas Eve of 1843 when Ebenezer Scrooge sat busy in his counting house with his clerk nearby trying to warm himself at a candle.
So cold, so cold.
God rest ye merry gentlemen, let nothing you dismay. Remember Christ our Savior was born on Christmas Day.
Merry Christmas, Uncle.
What?
I said Merry Christmas, Uncle. God bless you.
Humbug.
Christmas? A humbug, Uncle? Surely you don't mean that.
Of course I mean it. Merry Christmas indeed. What reason have you to be merry? You're poor enough.
Oh, come, Uncle. What reason do you have to be dismal? You're rich enough.
Bah! Away with Merry Christmas. What's Christmas to you but a time for paying bills without money? A time for finding yourself a year older and not an hour richer.
Uncle.
Nephew, keep Christmas in your own way and let me keep it in mine.
But you don't keep it.
Leave it alone then. A lot of good it has done you.
Well, I have benefited from many things, even if they don't show a profit. Christmas among them. In addition to its name and origin, I have always thought of Christmas as a good time, a kind, forgiving, and charitable time. And therefore, Uncle, I believe that it has done me good. And I say, God bless it.
Enough! Another sound out of you, and you'll keep your Christmas by losing your position.
Don't be angry, Uncle. Come and dine with us tomorrow.
I'll see myself in hell first.
But why, Uncle?
Why? Why? Let me ask you a question. Why did you get married recently?
Well, because I fell in love, of course.
Love. You fell in love. Bah. Good afternoon, nephew.
I want nothing from you. Why can't we be friends?
Good afternoon.
Oh, I'm sorry to find you so resolute. We've never had a quarrel, you and me. But I came all this way to give you greetings of the season. So, a Merry Christmas, Uncle.
Good afternoon.
And a Happy New Year.
Good afternoon.
And a Merry Christmas to you, Bob Cratchit.
Oh, thank you, sir. A Merry Christmas to you.
There's another fellow, my clerk, with 15 shillings a week and a wife and a family, talking about a Merry Christmas. What lunacy.
As Scrooge's nephew exited the door, two other men entered, portly but pleasant in appearance. They bowed to Scrooge.
Scrooge and Marley's, I believe. Have I the pleasure of addressing Mr. Scrooge or Mr. Marley?
Marley's dead. In fact, he died 7 years ago this very night.
Oh, I'm quite sorry to hear it, but I have no doubt his generosity is well represented by his surviving partner.
At this festive season of the year, Mr. Scrooge, it is more than usually desirable that we should make some slight provision for the poor and the needy, who suffer greatly at the present time. Many thousands are in want of basic needs. Hundreds of thousands are in want of common comforts, sir.
Are there no prisons? Did they disappear?
Oh, no, sir, there are still plenty of prisons.
And the workhouses for the poor? Still in operation, I assume.
They are. Still, I wish I could say they were not.
Oh. Well, I was afraid from what you had said that something had stopped them in their useful course. I'm glad to hear it.
Well, given that they scarcely furnish Christian cheer to the multitude, a few of us are trying to raise funds to buy the poor some meat and drink and some means of warmth. What shall I put you down for?
Nothing.
Ah, you wish to be anonymous then?
I wish to be left alone. I am heavily taxed for the institutions I have mentioned, and I can't afford to make idle people merry. Those who are badly off must go there.
But many can't go there, and many others would rather die.
Oh, well, if they'd rather die, perhaps they should go ahead and do it and decrease the surplus population.
Oh, tidings of comfort and joy, comfort and joy. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy.
Get away from here, you. I didn't ask to be bothered with that noise. You'll want the day off tomorrow, I suppose.
But if it's quite convenient, sir.
It's not convenient, and it's not fair. If I was to hold back half a crown for it, you'd think you were being abused, no doubt. And yet you don't think me ill-used when I pay a day's wages for no work.
But it's only once a year, sir.
A poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December. But I suppose you must have it. Be here all the earlier next morning.
Oh, yes, sir, I shall. I certainly shall.
The office was closed in a twinkling, and Scrooge took his melancholy dinner in his usual melancholy tavern and went home for bed. His home had once belonged to his deceased partner, Marley, a gloomy suite of rooms, old and dreary, and only Scrooge would live in it. The fog and frost hung about the old black gateway, and Scrooge, who knew every stone, had to grope his way along with his hands. Now, it is a fact that there was nothing at all particular about the large knocker on the door of this house, and yet Scrooge, having his key in the lock, saw on that door not a knocker, but Marley's face with a dismal light about it. It was not angry or ferocious, but just looked as Scrooge, just as Marley used to. As Scrooge stared at this, it was once again a knocker.
Pooh, pooh.
And he closed the door with a bang. The noise resounded throughout the house like thunder. He fastened the door and climbed the stairs. There, he closed his bedchamber door and locked himself in, double locked himself in, which was not his custom. Thus secured against surprise, he donned his robe, slippers, and nightcap and sat before the very low fire to take his gruel. As he threw his head back in the chair, his glance happened upon a disused bell that hung in the room. It was with great astonishment and with a great dread that as he looked he saw this bell begin to swing. Soon it rang loudly. This was succeeded by a clanking noise. Deep down below,
Humbug!
as if some person were dragging a heavy chain over the casks in the wine cellar below. Then he heard the noise much louder on the floors below, then coming up the stairs, then coming straight towards his door. It came through the heavy door, and a specter passed into the room before his eyes. The chain he drew was clasped about his middle. It was long and wound about him like a tail, and it was made of cash boxes, keys, padlocks, ledgers, deeds, and heavy purses wrought in steel.
Scrooge! Scrooge!
Humbug! I won't believe it. What do you want with me?
Much.
Who are you?
Ask me who I was.
All right. Who were you then?
In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley.
Ha! I don't believe it.
Ah!
Mercy. Dreadful apparition. Why do you trouble me?
Man of the worldly mind, do you not believe in me?
I do. I must. But why have you come to me?
It is required of every man that his spirit should walk among his fellow men and travel far and wide. And if that spirit does not go forth in life, it is condemned to do so after death and witness what it might have shared and turned to happiness. Oh, woe is me.
You are fettered. Tell me why.
I wear the chain I forged in life. I made it link by link, yard by yard, in the word of my own free will. Is the pattern strange to you, or would you know the weight and length of the strong coil you bear yourself? It was as long as and as heavy as this 7 Christmas Eves ago, and you have labored on it since. It is a ponderous chain.
Jacob, old friend, please, speak comfort to me.
I have none to give. I have little time. I cannot rest. I cannot linger anywhere. My spirit never walked beyond the narrow limits of our money-changing hole.
But you always were a good man of business, Jacob.
Business? Humankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, and benevolence were all my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business. This time of the rolling year I suffer most. Oh, why did I walk through crowds of fellow beings with my eyes turned down? Hear me. After 7 years roaming this world, my time is nearly done.
Hear you I will, Jacob. Don't be hard on me.
I am here to warn you that you have yet a chance of escaping my fate, a chance I have procured for you, Ebenezer.
You were always a good friend. Thank you.
You will be visited by 3 spirits.
Is that the chance you mentioned?
It is.
Oh, well, then. I think I'd rather not.
Without their visits, you cannot hope to shun the path I tread. Expect the first tomorrow when the bell tolls 1.
Can't they all come at once and have it over with, Jacob?
Expect the second on the next night at the same hour. The third upon the next night when the stroke of that same hour has ceased to vibrate. Look to see me no more, and for your sake, take care you remember what has passed between us.
The apparition backed away from Scrooge and disappeared through the just opened window into the night. As Scrooge lay down, whether owing to the emotion he'd undergone or the fatigues of the day, he fell asleep on the instant. When he awoke, it was dark, very much so, and Scrooge could see little, but he could hear the cathedral bell toll 1, 2, and so on to 11, 12. Impossible, Scrooge thought. Midnight? I went to bed at 2. I could not have slept for nearly a day, but his fear made him remain awake, counting the minutes, counting the quarter hours from the cathedral bell until 1. Suddenly, the curtains of his bed were swept aside by a strange figure, like a child, yet not so like a child as an old man, with hair white as with age, but a face without a wrinkle.
Are you the Spirit whose coming was foretold to me?
I am.
Who and what are you?
I'm the ghost of Christmas past.
Long past?
No, your past.
But why my past?
For your welfare, of course.
The Spirit reached out a strong hand and gently grasped Scrooge by the arm, walking him to the window.
Rise and walk with me.
But I am mortal and may fall. And it is much cold down there, and I have but a robe and slippers.
Bear but a touch of my hand, there, and you will be upheld in many things.
As these words were spoken, they stood upon an open country road with fields on either side. Soon they neared a market and a church and a school.
What child is this who lay to rest on Mary's lap is sleeping, whom angels greet with anthems sweet, while shepherds watch are keeping? This is Christ the King, whom shepherds guard and angels sing. Haste, haste to bring him, Lord, the babe, the Son of Mary.
Good heaven! I was bred in this place. I was a boy here.
Your lip is trembling. And what is that upon your cheek?
What's that? Oh, nothing, just nothing. Lead me where you would, Spirit.
Do you remember the way, Ebenezer?
Remember it, I could walk it blindfolded.
Strange that you've forgotten it after so many years.
Look, Spirit, see those children. I remember them.
They're rejoicing on their day off. It's Christmas. But these are merely shadows of the things that have been. They're not aware of us. And see, a solitary child remains in that school, neglected by his friends, reading a book.
That poor boy, he is I. My mother died giving birth to my sister. My father grew morose and seemed to begrudge us both ever after. I wish, but it's too late now.
What is it?
It's nothing. There was a boy singing a Christmas carol at my door last night. I should like to have given him something. That's all.
The schoolhouse was very old, with crumbling plaster and naked laths revealing its neglect and decay. Scrooge looked on as his younger self opened the door, and a young girl entered.
Spirit, that's little Fan, my dear sister.
Dear brother.
Fan, little Fan, you've grown.
I have come to bring you home, dear brother.
Home, little Fan?
Yes, home for good and all. Father is much kinder than he used to be. He was in a pleasant mood just the other night, so I was not afraid to ask him once more if you might come home, and he said, yes, you should, and he sent me to bring you. Ebenezer, Father has arranged an apprenticeship for you. You're to be a man and begin your career. You'll never have to spend another moment in this dreadful school. But first, we'll be together all Christmas long and have the merriest time in all the world.
Always a delicate creature, whom a breath might have withered. But she had a large heart.
So she had. You're right about that, Spirit.
Come, Ebenezer, pack your things. The carriage is just outside.
Are you sure Father is ready to have me home?
Oh, yes, I'm sure of it.
But where am I to be apprenticed?
You'll work for a wonderful man, Mr. Fezziwig, who keeps a warehouse. Now, come. We mustn't keep the carriage waiting.
Your sister died a young woman, but she did have a child, as I recall.
Yes, a son, my nephew. His name is Fred.
Your nephew, Mr. Scrooge, the only family you have left.
Yes, that is true.
Come along, Scrooge. It's time to see another Christmas. Ah, do you know this place?
Know it? This is where I was apprenticed. Look, it's old Fezziwig. Bless his heart, Fezziwig alive again. And there's Dick Wilkins. We were the best of friends.
Yo-ho, Ebenezer, Dick. Bless his heart. Yo-ho, no work tonight, my boys. It's Christmas Eve. Clear away all this nonsense. All of you, we must make room. Life is too short for all work and no play. I say it's time for a party. Ho-ho, Dick. Ho-ho, Ebenezer.
Other workers assisted Ebenezer and Dick to clear the warehouse area. Yet more appeared, including Mrs. Fezziwig and her daughters. A joyous revelry ensued, all enjoying the bountiful morsels, the fiddler, and the dancing. At 11 o'clock, the ball came to a close, and Mr. and Mrs. Fezziwig stood at each side of the doorway, shaking every person's hands.
May the joy of the season's blessings be with you all for the year.
It's such a small thing to make these silly people feel so much gratitude and joy.
Small thing?
Is it not? After all, what did he do, this Fezziwig? Spent a few pounds on a party. Does he deserve such praise as this?
It isn't that, Spirit. Why, Mr. Fezziwig had the power to make us happy or unhappy. He could make our work pleasant or miserable just in the way he looked at us and the way he addressed us. 1,000 such little things add up, until the happiness he gave was as great as if it cost a fortune. And
what is it?
nothing.
Something, I think.
No. It's just that I would like to be able to say a word or two to my clerk just now. That's all.
Come, Mr. Scrooge, my time grows short. Quick.
This produced an immediate effect, for again Scrooge saw himself. He was a little older now, a man in the prime of life. His face had not yet the harsh and rigid lines of later years, but it had begun to wear the signs of greed and avarice. He was not alone, for beside him sat a fair young woman in whose eyes there were tears.
I know it matters very little to you. Another idol has displaced me. And if it can make you happy as I would have tried to, I have no reason to cry.
What idol has displaced you?
A golden one.
Ah, but the words speak so vehemently against poverty, yet it condemns the pursuit of wealth just as harshly.
You fear the world too much, Ebenezer. All your other hopes have merged into the one hope of eluding the disdain of others. I've seen your nobler virtues fall away, one by one, until nothing is left but one master passion, the pursuit of gain. It consumes you.
What then? Even if I have grown wiser and more astute, I haven't changed my feelings towards you.
Oh, Ebenezer, our promise to one another is an old one. We made it when we were young and poor and happy to remain so until we could improve our fortune together by patience and hard work. But you've changed. You are not the same man. Tell me, Ebenezer, if all of this had not happened, would you still seek me out and try to win me now, a poor, dowerless girl with nothing to bring to a marriage? Ah, no.
You think not?
You may feel sad now, Ebenezer, but I've no doubt you will dismiss the thought of me very soon, as if you were glad to have awakened from a bad dream. May you be happy in the life you have chosen.
Spirit, show me no more. Conduct me home. Why do you enjoy torturing me?
There's one more shadow we must see.
I don't wish to see it. Show me no more.
But the relentless spirit pinioned Scrooge by both arms, forcing him to look at what came next. A boisterous, happy house, as several giggly children were ushered off to bed by their mother, who, surprisingly, bore strong resemblance to the fair lady in the prior vision. A man entered the room and addressed her.
Belle, I saw an old friend of yours today.
Who was it? I can't imagine.
It was Ebenezer, Mr. Scrooge. I passed by his office and I could see through the window. His partner, Marley, I'm told lies upon the point of death. And there sat Mr. Scrooge, alone, quite alone in the world, I do believe.
Spirit, remove me from this place.
I told you, these are shadows of the things that have been. That they are what they are. Don't blame me.
Please, I beg you, take me away from here. I can bear no more. No more.
Scrooge covered his face with his hands. He was conscious of being exhausted and overcome by an irresistible drowsiness and of being in his own bedroom once again. He sank into a heavy sleep. Scrooge awoke, gazing into the darkness. After a time, he was drawn toward a light shining beneath the door to the adjoining room, and as his hand touched the lock, he heard,
Ebenezer Scrooge, come in. Come in and know me better, man. Oh.
a giant of a man. He was garbed in a simple green robe bordered with white fur. Though its feet were bare, his genial face, its sparkling eye, its open hand, and his cheery voice conveyed abundant joy.
You have never seen the likes of me before.
Never.
Have never walked forth with my younger brothers.
I'm afraid I have not. Have you had many brothers, Spirit?
More than 1,800.
Conduct me where you will. I went forth last night and learnt a lesson.
Touch my robe.
O little town of Bethlehem, how still we see thee lie. Above thy deep and dreamless sleep, the silent stars go by.
They fairly swept past or over, men shoveling snow out of walkways of shops which remained open to sell bakery, poultry, grocery items, or fruit for celebrating a meal soon after, and presently arrived at the threshold of a most modest four-room home.
Your clerk, Mr. Scrooge, and his ample family, his kind family.
Scrooge's eyebrows arched as he considered, Bob Cratchit has a large family in this little house? Presently, Mrs. Cratchit appeared.
What has ever got to your father then, and Tiny Tim, and Martha?
Here I am, Mother.
Oh, Martha, how late you are.
We had a great deal of work to finish at the Millers last night, and much to clear away this morning.
Well, never mind. As long as you're here, sit down by the fire and get warm.
Bob Cratchit arrived, his threadbare clothes darned up and brushed to look seasonable, and with Tiny Tim upon his shoulder. Alas for Tiny Tim, he bore a small crutch and had his limbs supported by an iron frame. All the other children rushed to embrace Bob and Tiny Tim.
And did little Tim behave himself in church?
Oh, he did as good as gold and better. He told me, coming home, that he hoped the people saw him in the church because he was a cripple, and it might be pleasant for them to remember on Christmas Day who made lame beggars walk and blind men see. But he's growing stronger every day. I just know it.
Martha, help me with the goose.
There's such a goose, Father, such as we've never had before. Just smell the sage and onion. We got it for a good price, too. It wasn't expensive at all.
Mrs. Cratchit re-entered in high procession with a small goose on a platter, followed in parade by potatoes mashed by Peter and applesauce sweetened by Belinda. All became seated at the table, Tiny Tim being carried to a small corner by his father, and grace was spoken. When every morsel had been consumed, again there was excited celebration as the pudding was brought, still sizzling and tipped out. At last, when all were filled to sufficiency, Bob Cratchit spoke.
A Merry Christmas to us all, my dears. God bless us.
Merry Christmas to all.
God bless us, everyone.
I had no idea Cratchit had a crippled son.
I wonder why not.
Tell me, Spirit, will the boy live?
I see a vacant seat at this table and a crutch without an owner, carefully preserved. If these shadows remain unaltered by the future, the child will die.
No, that cannot be. Say he will be spared.
If these shadows remain unaltered by the future, none others will find him here. But what difference does it make? If he is likely to die, then let him die and decrease the surplus population.
You use my words against me.
Yes, so that in the future perhaps you will hold your tongue until you have discovered what the surplus population is and where it is. Who are you to decide who shall live and who shall die?
And now, dear ones, a toast. I give you Mr. Scrooge, the founder of the feast.
Ha! The founder of our feast indeed. I wish I had him here. I'd give him a piece of my mind to feast upon.
My dear, the children. Christmas Day.
It may be only on Christmas Day when one would drink to the health of such an odious, stringy, hard, unfeeling man as Ebenezer Scrooge. No one knows it better than you, Bob.
My dear, have a little charity.
Oh, all right then. I'll drink his health for your sake and the day's sake, but not for his. Long life to him, a very Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year. I've no doubt he'll be very merry and happy indeed.
To Mr. Scrooge.
To Mr. Scrooge.
To Mr. Scrooge. I think it's time for a song.
Yay, a Christmas carol.
What shall we sing?
Let's sing Away in the Manger.
Away in a manger, no crib for a bed, the little Lord Jesus laid down his sweet head. The stars in the sky looked down where he lay. The little Lord Jesus asleep on the hay.
They were not a handsome family. They were not well dressed. Their shoes were not waterproof, and their clothes were scanty. But they were happy, grateful, pleased with one another. And as they heartily sang songs, a few times they were contented with today's time.
It is for heaven to live with thee there.
Scrooge looked back, particularly at Tiny Tim, as the Spirit led away through the darkening and heavily snowing way. Scrooge could see windows and doorways lighting up through the darkness and people entering others' homes. He saw the miners' camp, their shanties alit as best they could, and heard voices of merriment. He saw the shipboard crew on a vessel near the lighthouse, their hands cupped round vessels of some warm brew, their faces somehow aglow. It startled Scrooge to hear a hearty laugh, and was even greater surprise to recognize it as his nephew's, and to find himself in a bright, gleaming room with the Spirit standing by his side, smiling affably. The guests all sang, danced, and made merriment.
As I live, he said that Christmas was a humbug, and he believed it too.
More shame for him, Fred.
Well, he's really a comical old fellow, and not so pleasant as he might be. However, his offenses carry their own punishment, and I have nothing to say against him.
I'm sure he's very rich, Fred. At least you always tell me so.
But his wealth is of no use to him. He doesn't do any good with it. He doesn't make himself comfortable with it, and I sincerely doubt he would ever consider benefiting us with it.
Well, I have no pity for him.
Oh, but I have. Who suffers by his ill whims? Himself. Always. He won't come to dine with us, and what's the consequence? He loses some pleasant moments which could do him no harm. I mean to give him the same chance every year, whether he likes it or not. So here's to Uncle Scrooge.
Uncle Scrooge.
I should take offense at this tasteless banter at my expense. However, in view of the gaiety of the occasion, I will overlook it.
That is quite noble of you.
Forgive me, Spirit, if I am not justified in asking, but I see something strange protruding there from your skirts. What is that?
The Spirit drew aside the folds of his robe, disclosing two thin, dirty, wretched, scowling waifs crouched and clutching at his feet.
Spirit, are those yours?
No, they are man's. Do you not know them? This boy is ignorance, this girl is want. Beware them both, and all their kind do not accept either.
Have they no refuge or resource?
Are there no prisons? Are there no workhouses?
As the single stroke ceased, Scrooge remembered the prediction of old Jacob Marley, and lifting up his eyes through the dense fog, he beheld a solemn phantom approach, a tall figure, fully cloaked and hooded in black. Only one bony hand of the apparition could be seen.
Am I in the presence of the ghost of Christmas yet to come?
The spirit answered not, but pointed onward with his hand.
You are about to show me shadows of things that have not yet happened, but will happen in the time before us. Is that so, Spirit?
The upper folds of the garment moved for an instant as though the spirit had nodded its head.
Spirit, I fear you more than any specter I have seen. Will you not speak to me?
The hand again pointed forward.
Very well. Lead on then. The night is passing fast, and it is precious time to me.
Scrooge followed the slowly walking spirit as the city sprung up around them. They stopped at a pair of businessmen in discussion.
Why, I know those men, know them well, and maintain in their high esteem.
No, I don't know anything about it either way. I mean, I only know he's dead.
When did he die?
Last night, I believe.
What? What was the matter with him? I thought he'd never give up.
I don't know. God only knows.
What has he done with all his money?
I haven't heard. Left it with his company, perhaps. I only know he hasn't left it to me.
Well, it's likely to be a cheap funeral. I don't know anybody that would go to it. What if there's food?
I wouldn't go even then. Why bother? Goodbye. Goodbye.
Have these men no sense of decorum? Spirit, what is this? Why am I seeing this? Surely there is someone who feels some emotion over this man's death. Show me that person, I beg you.
The spirit turned and pointed opposite. Scrooge saw a family table where two children were seated. The mother was pacing back and forth. Her husband entered. He was very somber.
Oh, you've finally come, Thomas. What news? Is it good or bad?
It's bad, I'm afraid.
Are we ruined, Thomas? Did he deny you the extra time you asked for? Has he evicted us?
No, there is hope yet, Caroline.
But only if he repents, that old miser. There might be hope if such a miracle has happened.
He is past repenting, dear. He's dead.
What? Dead? Oh, glory. God be praised. Oh, I'm sorry. Lord, forgive me.
I thought he was merely trying to avoid me.
Well,
But what I had been told is quite true. Not only was he very ill, but he was dying, even then.
to whom will our debt be transferred?
I don't know, but it would be hard to find a creditor who was as merciless as he is, or was. We may sleep tonight with light hearts, Caroline.
Spirit, I asked to see some emotion connected with this man's death, and you show me only pleasure. I demand to be shown some tenderness connected with the death.
The Spirit conducted him through numerous streets familiar to his feet, and Scrooge looked here and there, hoping to see himself, but nowhere was he to be found. Presently, they were inside Bob Cratchit's home. Scrooge saw the Cratchit family table. The children were seated quietly. Mrs. Cratchit and the older girls were sewing. Martha was reading from the Bible. Peter and others were seated about.
And he took a child and seated him in the midst of them. And he said to them, "Whenever you bring a little child, you welcome me."
This candlelight hurts my eyes. There, better now. Let me wipe them dry. I wouldn't show teary eyes to your father when he comes home. It must be near his time to arrive.
Past it, rather. But I think he walked a little slower than he used to these days.
Yes, I had known him to walk swiftly, even with Tiny Tim upon his shoulder. Very fast indeed.
And so have I.
But he was very light to carry, and his father loved him so. It was no trouble at all.
They all greet him, and he sits and speaks solemnly.
I went by there today. That's why I'm late. I wish you could have been there. It would have been good for you to see how green it is. But you'll see it often. I promised him that I would walk there every Sunday to visit him. You see, but guess whom I saw today? Mr. Scrooge's nephew, Fred. I met him on the street. He saw that I was a little down, and well, he's the most pleasant man you ever heard, and so I was not afraid to tell him. And this is what he said to me. "I'm heartily sorry, Mr. Cratchit. Heartily sorry." And he pledged to be of any service he could to us. And it really seems as if he had known our Tiny Tim and knew how we felt. And I'm sure none of us will ever forget poor Tiny Tim, shall we?
And I know as well, my dears, that we'll remember how patient and mild he was, although he was a little child. No, we won't forget him. Never.
Spectre. Something informs me that the moment of our parting is at hand. I know it, but I don't know how. Tell me, the man who was spoken of, the one who died, tell me who he was.
The ghost of Christmas yet to come conveyed him to a dismal, wretched, ruined churchyard. To the side was a large plot densely arrayed with grave markers. The Spirit pointed towards one.
Before I draw nearer to that stone to which you point, answer me one question. Are these the shadows of the things that will be, or are they the shadows of things that may be only?
The specter continued to point.
The course of a man's life, if persevered in, will determine certain ends. I accept it. But if he departs from those courses, then the ends can be changed. Say it is so with what you show me.
The specter continued pointing as Scrooge crept, trembling toward the stone. Seeing the name inscribed there, he fell to his knees. It read, Ebenezer Scrooge.
No, it can't be. Am I that man? And am I the man who died, whom no one mourned? Say it isn't so, Spirit. Say it isn't so.
The specter turned and pointed directly at Scrooge.
Spirit, hear me. I am not the man I was. I will not be the man I must have been before your intervention. Why show me this if I am past all hope?
The hand of the phantom began to tremble and shake.
Assure me that I may yet change these shadows you have shown me by a changed life.
The specter's hand and arm continued to shake. The entire body bent and swayed.
I will honor Christmas in my heart and will try to keep it all year. I will remember the lessons of the past. I will live in the present. I will live toward the future. The spirits of all three will strive in me. Oh, tell me that I may sponge away the writing on this stone.
In his agony, Scrooge grasped at the specter's hand, grabbed at the robe, pleading, crying, pulling it down, and the vision shrunk, collapsed, and dissolved into the night mist. He was in a bed, his own bed. The room was his own. Best and happiest of all, the time before him was his own to make amends in.
I will live in the past, the present, and the future. Look, the shadow of the things that would have been, they can be dispelled. They will be. I know they will be. I don't know what to do. I feel light as a feather. I'm happy as an angel. I'm as merry as a schoolboy.
Running to the window, he opened it and put out his head. No fog, no mist, clear, bright, joyous. A boy in Sunday clothes came into view.
Hello, you, boy. What day is it? What day is it?
What day is it?
Yes, what day is today?
Why, it's Christmas Day.
Christmas Day. Are you quite sure, my good fellow?
I should say I am.
Then the spirits have done it all in one night. Why, of course, they can do anything they like. Of course they can. Hello, my fine fellow.
Hello.
Do you know the poulterers in the next street over at the corner?
I should hope so.
What a wonderful boy, a remarkable boy. Do you know whether they've sold the prize turkey that was hanging up there?
What, the one as big as me?
What a delightful boy. A pleasure talking with you. Yes, my buck, the one as big as you.
It's hanging there right now.
It is? Why, then you must go and buy it. Yes, go and buy it now.
Are you mad, sir?
Oh, no. I'm in earnest. Go and buy it and tell them to bring it round so that I can give them directions where to deliver it. Come back with the man and I'll give you a shilling. Come back with him in less than 5 minutes and I'll give you half a crown.
The boy turned and was off like a shot.
I'll send it to Bob Cratchit. He won't know who sent it. I won't tell him. It's twice the size of Tiny Tim. Tiny Tim. Oh, Tiny Tim will live. On my soul, Tiny Tim will live. They did it all in one night. The spirits of Christmas past, present, and future shall strive within me. I say it on my knees. Dear Lord, on my knees. A Merry Christmas to everybody. A Happy New Year to all the world.
The boy and the poulterer and the turkey appeared below the window.
Hello.
Ah, here's the turkey. Hello. How are you, my boy? I was right. This turkey is twice the size of Tiny Tim. And you, Mr. Poulterer, Merry Christmas, my fine fellow.
Merry Christmas, sir.
Why, it's impossible to carry that to Camden Town. You must have a cab, sir.
Camden Town, sir?
Yes. This splendid turkey is to be delivered immediately to the home of Bob Cratchit and family in Camden Town. Here, I've written the directions down, and here's the money for the turkey.
Thank you, sir.
And here's the money for the delivery.
Thank you, sir.
And here is a tip for you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
And here is a half a crown for you, my boy. Well deserved, well deserved.
Thank you, sir.
And a very Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Looking around, Scrooge saw two gentlemen quietly chatting, the very same as visited him earlier yesterday.
My dear sir, how do you do? I hope you did well yesterday. It was a very good thing to do, a very good thing.
Mr. Scrooge.
Yes, that is my name, and I fear it isn't pleasant to you. Allow me to ask your forgiveness, and yours too, sir.
Certainly, sir.
And will you have the goodness?
Scrooge whispered something in one gentleman's ear.
Lord bless me, my dear Scrooge. Are you quite serious?
If you please, not a farthing less. A great many back payments are included in it, I assure you. Will you do me that favor?
My dear sir, I don't know what to say to such generosity.
Don't say anything, please. Come and see me sometime. Will you come and see me, both of you?
We will. We will.
Would you believe it that Scrooge went to church that day? He did, and walked about the streets and watched the people hurrying to and fro and patted children on the head as they passed and spoke to beggars and looked down into the kitchens of houses and up to the windows and found that everything could yield him pleasure. He had never dreamed that any walk, that anything at all, could give him so much happiness. In the afternoon, he turned his steps towards his nephew's house.
Oh, Fred, this is beautiful, but it's too much. You shouldn't have spent so much.
Well, I love you, my dear, and my wife shall have the best on Christmas Day. Oh, did you hear a knock at the door?
Now, who could that be?
I don't know. No one's expected at this hour. Wait, let me see who.
Hello, Fred.
Uncle Scrooge.
The very same. I recall an invitation you made to me yesterday to come and dine with you. If that invitation is still in force, I should like to accept.
Well, I don't know what to say.
Well, you could say, bah humbug, a retort I heartily repent of and shall never use again. Or you could just say, come in.
Come in? Why, of course. Of course you shall come in. Hooray! Uncle Scrooge, you have made us both very happy. May I introduce my wife, Janet. Janet, my Uncle Scrooge.
My dear, it's plain to me now why my nephew chose you among women. You are indeed every bit as lovely as I have heard.
Why, thank you, Uncle Scrooge. We are so happy you are here.
I'm sorry for the things I said about Christmas, and sorry for the poor reception I gave you yesterday, of which you were so undeserving. I see the image of my sister in your face. I loved her, you know, and she you.
I know it, Uncle Scrooge. She loved you very much and wished until her dying day that we should always be close.
And so we are, Fred, and so we shall be. So we shall be.
It was by then the day after Christmas, and Scrooge was, as would be usual, in his counting house, as usual, sitting at his desk, hard at work. But not usual, if I be straightforward, was the mischievous smile on his face and a pleasant humming from his lips. Bob Cratchit entered the office.
What is this?
Good morning, sir.
Good indeed. Mr. Cratchit, you are late.
Yes, sir.
What do you mean by coming here at this time of day?
Oh, I'm very sorry, sir. I'm behind my time.
Step this way, if you please, Bob Cratchit.
It's only once a year, sir. It shall not be repeated. I was making rather merry yesterday with my family, and then I was going...
Now, I'll tell you what, my friend. I'm not going to stand for this any longer. And therefore,
But sir,
I am going to double your salary. Yes, Mr. Cratchit, I am going to double your salary, sir. A Merry Christmas to you. A merrier Christmas than I have given you for many a year. And from now on, I will endeavor to assist your family in any way I can. And as for Tiny Tim, he will walk again. I know it. Now, you needn't say a thing. Come with me. We will discuss the particulars over a bowl of hot stew before you so much as dot another I. Bob Cratchit.
Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round yon virgin mother and child, holy infant, so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace, sleep in heavenly peace.
Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all and infinitely more. And to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father. He became as good a friend, as good a master, and as good a man as the old city knew.
You have been listening to the Theatre of the Open Hearts present A Christmas Carol, adapted for radio and narrated by Brad Stribling. And starring tonight, the role of Scrooge was performed by Bill Fulcher. Jacob Marley, or his ghost, was played by Bob Baker. Bob Cratchit was performed by Muntu Joshi. Fred was played by Steve Garnick. The Ghost of Christmas Past was performed by Terry Sherman. The Ghost of Christmas Present was performed by Dick Lamb. The Ghost of Christmas Future, well, he was always with us. The solicitors were Larry Pasquale and Dick Lamb. The role of Fan was performed by Gin Calvin. Young Ebenezer, Larry Pasquale. Mr. Fezziwig was played by yours truly. Mrs. Fezziwig was played by Gin Calvin, and Belle was performed by Kim Reisdorf. Belle's husband, Dave Hagerbush. The role of Mrs. Cratchit was played by Shannon Dever. Martha Cratchit was performed by Janae Joshi. Janet was played by Melinda Morse. The businessmen were Jerry Ricker and Dave Hagerbush. The role of Caroline was performed by Winnie Stribling. Thomas was performed by Terry Sherman. The boy in the street was played by Moxley Carroll. Turkey Man the poulterer was Bob Baker. The carolers were led by Dave Hagerbush and included Suzanne Stevens, Jerry Ricker, Shannon Never, Winnie Stribling, and again yours truly, and the accompanist is Melinda Morse. Sarah Stribling was our sounds effects specialist, and Moxie Carroll was Tiny Tim. We at the Theatre of Open Hearts wish you a very Merry Christmas. Keep it, as well as Scrooge knew how. And as Tiny Tim said, God bless us, everyone.
Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare him room. And heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing. Joy to the world, the Savior reigns. Let all their songs implore the fields and floods, rocks, hills, and plains. Repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sounding joy. He rules the world with truth and grace, and makes the nations prove the glories of his righteousness, and wonders of his love, and wonders of his love, and wonders of his love.
And before we leave, a special round of appreciation for our director, script writer, and herder of cats as he got us all together. And